Hello. Hello. Great to see you for Violympic Trials Day 4. We'll take just a minute, make sure that everyone can see and hear and get situated. Always great to have you here. Once again, a view of Tokyo, or close by anyway, for our Violympic theme. Actually, last year's challenge piece, of course, was simply called the Violympic theme. This time, rather than just saying Violympic theme 2.0, we have these fast rows of summer, and I think there's some rowing going on behind me, the outskirts of Tokyo here as well. Great to see you once again. Quick reminder, although I think everyone watching by now has registered, but if there's anyone out there not registered for these trials, just click the link in the description, and then you can grab the music for the fast rows of summer, your assignments and all that, and join in the fun. I thought we'd start today with just a fresh look at harmonics. There are a lot of harmonics in this piece, and I know those of you in the Facebook group, Nate's Violin Practice Room Facebook group, have seen a poll. I enjoyed reading the responses there, one of which was harmonics are the least of my problems. Even so, though, I certainly know how much of a pain harmonics can be, especially when no one tells you exactly how to play them. Believe it or not, in professional orchestras too, Los Angeles Philharmonic, where I play, and every orchestra I've been in, depending on how those composers write in the harmonics, there's always, angst, controversy, what harmonic is this? How do we play it? Because it's not always clear. And even once in the Chicago Symphony, when Charles Dutoit was there to conduct, he got into a little bit of a thing with one of the harpists. He was saying the harpist was playing a wrong note, harpist was saying they were right, and finally the harpist came out with, well, maybe you don't know how harmonics work. And he didn't like that. He was one of those old school maestros who definitely knew how all the various instruments worked, and it was a rather childish response, but he said, no, I don't know how they work, why don't you tell me? And so at the risk of treating you like you don't know how harmonics work, I did want to go over just a few of them, because they can be difficult to come out, and honestly, if you watch my performance video, you'll hear how not all of them totally speak. I didn't feel like doing a retake of the whole thing just to get all the harmonics perfect, and neither should you. The simplest harmonic, right, and the one that's easiest to make speak, is the one that appears halfway up the string. All we're doing when we play harmonics, by the way, is dividing the string into different lengths, right? If you and a friend perhaps have ever played around with a jump rope, let's say you and the friend, or you can tie a rope to a stationary object and do the same thing. You've got one end of the rope, the other end of the rope, let's say, is not moving, and so you kind of start moving it up and down. If you do it at just any speed, there's some, it's a little bit out of sync, right? You'll see the rope kind of pulse like that, but it'll keep changing where the pulses are. If you get a certain speed and a certain tension, though, with your rope, and if you get it in sync, you'll see that that rope divides neatly in two, right? There's one pulse that goes up, meets at the middle, and then the other half of the rope goes down, and then they switch. Now this half goes down, the other half goes up. And as you keep that constant speed and tension in the rope, that middle point stays absolutely still, and both halves of the rope are pulsing up and down. It's exactly what our string does. When you divide it in half, because an octave, whether you're playing a harmonic or a solid note, lies exactly halfway down the length of the string. So what we do when we play a harmonic, we allow both halves of that string to vibrate. If you divide a string in 4, now it can be hard to see, but if you could zoom in with your eye on that string, in this case it's the D string, I'm playing a perfect fourth above the open string. That divides it exactly into 4 parts. What you'd be able to see are 4 nodes on the string. One lying right under our finger, the next one halfway up the string, the next way 3/4 up the string. Every one of those 4 points, those 4 nodes, would be staying still, and it would only be the parts in between that were vibrating. So we've got an open string, one long length of string vibrating. Cut it in half, 2 shorter lengths of string vibrating. Cut it in 4 really short lengths, and any harmonic works the same way. So if you look, for example, now, those were all harmonics on an open string, right? Natural harmonics is what we call those. Artificial harmonics, why are they called that? I don't know. I mean, they're just as real as anything else, I suppose. But artificial harmonics mean that we're changing the length of the open string. So if you look at bar 53 in the last rows, on the violin, that's a B flat. So rather than an open A string, if I divide an open A string into 4, I play a perfect fourth above the open A string. It sounds 2 octaves above the open A string. Fine and dandy. What if I don't want an A, I want a B flat? I wish I had a B flat string. Could do scordatura, I guess, but simpler than that is just put a first finger down, right? So now I don't have an open A string, I've got an open B flat string. I divide that in 4 by playing a perfect fourth above that note. Yep. And I've got my harmonic that sounds 2 octaves above my new open string, the B flat string. So just quickly looking at some of these other harmonics there. In bar 25, those are both the simple 1 octave above the open string harmonic. In 27, we're coming out of the Now this is an interesting thing. Once again, I've divided the string into 4, right? It's just that this time I told you right there, whenever you do that, there are 4 nodes. The quarter mark, the half mark, the 3/4 mark. I said 4 nodes, I'm so sorry. There are 3 nodes, dividing it into 4 portions. So whether I touch the one that's at the quarter mark or the 3/4 mark, it's the same note. There's the quarter mark. There's the 3/4 mark. This one sounds a little bit louder, which is why when we get the chance, we often go up for those. In bar 33, now this gets a little tricky. The first one, I've divided the string into, yikes, I believe it's 3 equal parts, a perfect fifth above the open string. Okay, and so that sounds an octave and a fifth above the open string. The next note, I've divided the A string into 4 parts. Next, I've divided the D string into, who knows, now this is where my math starts to get a little foggy, but it sounds a major third plus 2 octaves above the open string. or to say it sounds 2 octaves above the finger that I've just put down. That, the shorter the portions that you're dividing the string into, the harder it is to get them to speak. So this one's easy, this one's a little trickier, this one's the trickiest. So, best chances to get those to speak, you want a slow bow with good concentration. If you try to, it's never going to come out. You want both hands concentrated into the string. So as I've said before, you don't want those fingers just floating on top of the string. Put them halfway down. And a slow bow with good concentration. And even then, sometimes you need a little luck or blessing. All right. The artificial harmonics in 53, we've talked about that passage. Each time I'm just changing the length of the string, right? Now, in 54 and 56, I could have just done that on an open A string, couldn't I? It's the same note. Why do I go to the trouble of shifting up to 4th position and using a 1 and a 4? It's because I wanted vibrato, right? If you don't need vibrato on that, you can just do a 1st position 3rd finger on the open A string. If you look now at bar 55, 6, 7, 8, 9, here we're combining an open string and a harmonic. And this pesky one, the touch 5 harmonic. I did that because I wanted these notes. If that's too big a reach, I've got a couple alternatives for you. You can play an octave higher than what I've written by shifting up just a minor 3rd and doing an artificial harmonic there. 5th position. So that would sound. You could also. What did I do? Just play a solid note. So that's an octave lower than what I have written, but that works as well. So those are some ways to get around that particular challenge. But, you know, harmonics are useful to familiarize yourself with. Certainly for orchestral playing, they come up in the solo rep all the time, and there are these nice techniques you can use. We're also going to talk a little today about how to slide up to harmonics, but let's move on to a different subject just for the moment. I actually want to start today by talking about Sforzando. There aren't that many in this piece, but whether you call it a Sforzando or whether something is not marked as a Sforzando, but you know that it needs emphasis or a good strong articulation, you want to know how to do it and how to do it without crunching or scratching. So we're looking at bar 40 in the fast rose, and this is the note on violin. It's a G flat, viola would be a C flat, right? So whether you want to be up in position here or just pick another note, either way, I'm going to set the bow gently at the frog. So whatever image comes to mind, if you feel that bow kind of floating in your hand here, and maybe it's a butterfly landing gently on your front porch or on a plant, whatever it is, it's just landing gently, kissing the string and the bow are joining together. It's not a big operation here. So I'm going to add weight into the bow, not by dragging down with my arm, not by pressing with my 1st finger, but actually with my pinky here. If I get the bow quite close to my hand here, under the hand, then I can add weight into the string just by pushing down a bit with my pinky. How much? Well, trial and error. I know how much because I've done this a lot. But push down a little bit and then draw the bow. And as you draw the bow, as soon as you draw the bow, you release that weight that you've just put in. You'll know if you release it too late because you'll get a big dragging or crunching of the bow. If you release it too early, you won't get any articulation at all, right? So for some people, it's hard for them to feel that pinky adding the weight. It might be more useful for you to imagine that your thumb is pushing up into the leather. When I'm quite close to the frog like this, I like to think pinky. In other parts of the bow, I do imagine the thumb pushing up into the leather. You do what's helpful for you. And you'll notice I'm using a pretty good speed, right? It's easier to get a good sound and to hear your articulation that way. And the zing is a nice word for this, right? Especially when you combine it with just a bit of vibrato. When you've got great bow articulation, you don't need as much vibrato to make your point. You see what my hand is doing? It's that much. But it sounds like a lot because the bow is doing the work. It's the same for bar 48. Different strings though. You know, if you're following my plan, then you're on your lowest string for that first Sforzando. Here you're on either your second highest string or the top two strings if you're taking advantage of the open. What does that mean? Well, the higher your string, like an A or an E string on the violin, the less weight you need to set before you release it for the Sforzando. So you should feel a lot of give, a lot of resistance to the string. You need more weight. If you try doing that same amount of weight, you're really gonna get a crunch there. So it doesn't need much at all. Especially violinists on the E string, boy, we don't need much weight to set there to get a great articulation. I'd love for you to try this also up bow, starting at the tip. So this note, for example, now, you're not going to be adding weight with your pinky up here, I guarantee you. You try that, the tip flies right off, huh? So for this, for sure, feel your thumb pushing up into the leather. You can imagine, what I like to imagine, if that's not enough, is that I've got a doorknob and I'm going to open the door. Right? What would you do with the doorknob? So in this case, I'm turning it this way. So it's nothing really that you'll be able to see, right? This is what I'm doing more or less, but the string is getting in the way. So I set the weight, I release it as I do my Sforzando. So it takes, yes, more physical effort, right, to set the weight up at the tip. That's why it's less comfortable, but it's all the same principles. If you release it too late, you'll hear that drag. If you release it too early, or if you don't have enough to begin with, you won't hear articulation. And you can try that with both of those notes as well, the one in bar 40 and the one in bar 48. Let's go now to the smooth exchange shift, and it's a rather fancy name for something that you have probably done anyway without thinking about it, but it's really a revelation for a lot of people when they realize what they've been doing and that they could extend that to a lot more situations, particularly shifting back down. We talked about guide fingers and guide shifts before. right? Shifting and dropping, sliding and dropping. All right, and that's the most useful way to break down a shift where you're shifting up from a lower finger to a higher one. For example, 1 up to 3, or 3 back down to 1. Right? Now there are ways to make those shifts smoother, aren't there? If I didn't want that sound for the shift, we've already talked about new finger slides, haven't we? We talked about that yesterday. Or I can decide just how smooth or how shifty I'd like those. But what about when you're shifting up from a higher finger to a lower one? From 2 up to 1, for example. Now this is the thing that if you've been playing violin for very long, you've probably already done, right? It's one of the simplest shifts in the book. Which book, I don't know, but if you think of that as a guide slide or a guide shift, what would the guide note be? 3rd position. So on the A string anyway, that would be a guide note of an E. And then lift to reveal the 1. That's not going to sound so good, is it? Right? If I'm playing a scale. I don't want to do that. So what am I going to do instead? It's probably, as I said, what you've already done naturally. You just kind of do it. There's no guide note or anything. So let's look at what you're actually doing when you do that. You're sliding up with a 2. And at the same time, look what my 1 has done. It's made its way right up next to, kind of even underneath the 2. It's ready to kick it out of the way and take its place. That's a substitution. So now you're not going to be able to do this. I'm going to break it down so much that you're going to, well, if you could do it before, now you won't be able to. No, hopefully that won't happen. 1 and 2 are a whole step apart, aren't they? As I slide up with the 2, the 1 has now slid up to uproot the 2, and it takes its place. So that's the first skill to sharpen when you're talking about these exchange shifts, is the substitution that happens at the end. Between 1 and 2, how silently, how unobtrusively can I substitute one finger for the other without changing the pitch? My fingers are so close to the string. If you're trying to substitute from above like that, you're always... You can do it quickly, but you're still always going to hear that. Instead, keep them close. It's a horizontal movement. I want to be able to do that between any pair of fingers, at least any pair of adjacent fingers. How about 2 and 3? How about 3 and 4? This is the toughest one. Fingers are different lengths. 4 tends to be a little weaker, but let's see. All right. So again, this simple shift, smooth exchange. What I'm doing is I'm sliding up with the 2. 1 takes its place at the end. So it's the same deal coming back down. Again, probably something you've done a million times. What are we doing? Sliding down with the 1, and then a substitution of the 2. All right. So, I often get the question, that seems kind of clunky. Do you really have to slide to your note and then only substitute there at the end? This question comes up especially when it's a longer slide. Let's take as an example, let's see, 20, 26, 31, 49, 10, 11, 12, bar 26. If you're going to stay all on the lowest string as I do, then you've got, that's a big slide. From 3 up to 1. I'd rather not, right? I don't want to do it as a guide. I want smooth. As smooth as I can get anyway. So am I really sliding all the way up and then substituting? Maybe, maybe not. That substitution might happen somewhere in the middle, mightn't it? And I finish the slide with the 1? It could be. So that's why I say in the assignment, don't worry if you're doing it right at the end or if it's actually somewhere in the middle. Either way works. I find it useful at least to imagine starting the sliding motion with the finger that was already down, with the old finger. And so in your assignments, I give you bar numbers that include these smooth exchange shifts, either up or down. That is grist for your smooth exchanging mill. In your assignments now you see that I always call this potluck, right? At a potluck meal, all the attendees have brought a different dish, and so you have 30 different things to choose from. You probably can't eat them all, at least I hope not. You're going to feel sick. But you choose the things that you like that make sense for you. And that's what you're going to do for the rest of today and indeed tomorrow as well. I do, however, have a number of strategic things to talk about with you. So as far as skills and assignments, what should you do? The things that you need work on. That's what practicing is, right? It's partly building skills, assimilating them into the music that you're working on. And it's also, buttressing your strengths too. You don't want to spend all your time just doing things that you do badly. You want to have fun doing the things that you do well. So you want a nice mix, and depends on how much time you have, depends on how much energy you have. Anything that seems like it's really, really not working, I would encourage you to toss it overboard for this week, because by the end of today, I want you to have decided on the version of the Fast Rose of Summer that you're going to record. Meaning, what modifications are you going to make, if any? And approximately what tempo are you going to play at? So that's why I say if there's a skill that's just not happening at all, I don't want you to stress about it over these next, today and tomorrow and then the weekend when you make your recording. It's not worth it. I'd rather have you focus on the character, the shaping, which is so important. But if there's something you're getting the hang of it and it just needs some more work and you've got the energy and the desire for it, then go for it. That's what you should spend your time on today and tomorrow, as well as putting the whole piece together. I did promise you one more skill. Does not appear in the assignment book, but it's simply sliding to harmonics. What do you do? It goes along with how I've been telling you to play harmonics, right? So rather than having that finger floating on top of the string, it's partway down, right? Often when we're sliding to harmonics, it's not just to and to have it sit there. Often it's for dramatic effect, like right in bar, what is that bar? I don't have my own bar numbers memorized, but bar 19, for example, that deal. So not only am I sliding up to the harmonic, but I'm lifting the bow off. You can hear it ring. So what am I doing? Just like the new finger slides that we were talking about, or the same finger slides, where most of the slide happens quickly and then the last part's the slowest. Most of it's fast, the last part's the slowest, and right at the end, I dig my finger into the string a little bit so that I have somewhere to release it from. If I try and slide up, ghosting the string, and then release it at the precise when I think I'm on the note, I might get it, but then again I might not. It's pretty risky. So zoom up most of the way. The last minute I dig the finger in halfway anyway. It's like I've got a little gardening trowel and I'm uncovering some treasure in the dirt there. It's a little scoop at the end. Then I release the bow and then the finger. Now, the closer you can get those releases together, the more pop or the more ring you're going to get, right? So, not going to get so much ring there, but it's always bow first and then finger, but if I can get those close, then I get a lot of ring. I didn't listen on the way up and I went too far. Same as if it were a regular slide. The other thing that I like to do is to ride my finger on two rails. So I'm not sliding only on the D string. I've got my finger on the D and the next string over, the A string, the next higher string. So it's riding on two strings. All right. What if you're already on the highest string? Like that. Well, then I ride it between the highest string and the fingerboard. All right, so I've always got it riding between two rails. So I want to talk about a few strategic matters as you turn your attention now. Remember, this whole week the focus is practice makes performance, and your performance is going to be your recording that you make over the weekend if you're doing this, quote, on schedule, or after 5 days, or after your work period if you're doing this on a different schedule on your own timetable. Repetition. How many times do you repeat things? The closer you get to performance, the more you want your repetitions to resemble that performance. So if you ask me how many times to repeat something, I'm going to ask, well, what does it sound like? How does it feel? If it feels comfortable and it sounds good and you have mental focus and energy, then I say repeat it a lot, because that is going to be all really, really valuable stuff. If you are, let's say we've got that harmonic and you're how many times should you repeat that? Not even once. Or maybe once. You do it once and you saw my eyes, you saw my energy. Like, I know that's not going to work. I know that's not comfortable. For what, maybe I don't have the skills to do it. Maybe it's just too new. Once I do that once or maybe twice, I know, look, this is not something I need to keep repeating. There's a missing piece here. I need to either be doing it slowly. I need to review maybe the instructions to see maybe there was something I was missing. That feels comfortable. That I could repeat as many times as I have energy and focus for, because that is going to lead to great performing. So If you've taken a look at my scales book, for example, I talk about different zones of comfort. Your mind is always going to let you know when you're in that proper zone of focus or comfort, because if you're feeling good focus and you're up for repetition, that's when you know you've set yourself a task that's appropriate. You have a good chance of success and your mind is engaged gathering new information. If you're trying something that's too difficult, too complex, too many moving parts for you at that moment, doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. If you're trying something, a task that's too difficult, your brain will let you know because it will not stay on task. It's going to think about this, that, and the other. It's going to put some of that energy into negative emotion, judgment. Your mind will not be open to gathering information. You're not going to feel that buzz of life that you want for your tasks. If you're trying something that's too easy, actually most people don't do this very often, but it comes up, for example, if you're trying to work something up with the metronome and you say, I'm going to do it, play this piece through 10 times at 60, then 10 times at 65, and you get midway through that third repetition and you're noticing your shoelaces and you're thinking about what you're going to eat for dinner. That task is too easy and your mind's saying, I've learned all I can learn about this. I'm shutting off for the moment and you can do this on your own. So pay attention to how engaged you are. That's a great indicator of the appropriateness of your task. When you build speed, let's say that you like your sound, you're shaping for this, but you just think the piece or parts of it anyway need a faster tempo, the way to go about it is by grouping things together. So rather than just setting a metronome faster and saying, well, I'm going to play this whole piece or this whole page, this whole section a little bit faster, why not get small groups of things quite a bit faster and easier, more stylish, and then see how you can combine those. And we already talked about a pure example of note grouping at the very end with that run. I called them sprints. Sprints are the fastest possible kind of note grouping, right? So whether you want to call it a sprint, whether it's groups of 2 notes, that is the way to build tempo, ease, style. And the last strategic or general comment to keep in mind for today is to shape everything. No matter how many technical challenges you're facing, and again, I urge you to get rid of some of them if they're not realistic for you this week. But no matter what you're facing, your listeners don't care, right? They may be violinists, they may not be. They may not know what's difficult. They're going to sense, is this person, telling a story? Is there a message here? And I don't have a particular story in mind for the fast rows, but every note, every bar, every phrase should lead your listener somewhere. Some phrases, I'm not saying they have to lead your listener to a different part of the story. They could build anticipation, right? They could lead them into greater anticipation. What's going on, right? You get to choose. Do you think you're going to make a bigger impact by simply repeating exactly? I haven't put dynamics in those bars. Or is it going to be or the other way around? These are the fun things to think about. But there's no note in here that should just sit there with an average sound and an average bow and everything else. I know it seems like a lot to take on. You know, you're giving me all these things to do and now I have to shape it too. Keep it always in mind. Challenge yourself, right? If you're playing, could it be more interesting? Sure, it could be. Could it be more interesting? Oh yeah, I haven't really changed how much bow I'm using. So, you will surprise yourself with how interesting, how shapely you can make things if you just ask yourself, could it be more shapely? Could it be more interesting? And that is it. By the end of today, your biggest assignment is to be sure of what you're going to record on the weekend. So that means modifications and a plan for the tempo. That plan could shift as you go along. Maybe right now you're saying, you know, here's where I'm comfortable, and then you make some advances in the next 2 days and you realize, actually, yeah, this could be faster. I would rather have that happen than for you to say, okay, you know, this says dotted half equals 54 at the top of the music. That's my plan, and you're struggling to reach it, and you spend the next few days stressing about tempo. Plan for something slower. You heard my performance and Burchard's performance. We had 2 different takes on what the tempo and character could be. So you already know this works over a wide range. I encourage you to take advantage of that and to have different speeds for different parts of the piece as needed. You know, make it work, make the character work for you. All right. Tomorrow is our last day of live sessions. I feel sad about that already, but I'm so happy that you have agreed to spend this time with me. Whether you're here with me at this very moment or you're watching later today or watching significantly later. Thanks for spending time with me, and good luck. Decide your performance version by the end of today, and I will see you soon.